I have a feeling that the last thing you want me to talk about today is matzah, this box of matzah. We've had enough matzah, but the box I just held up is very special, and it contains an important lesson in life. The lesson the Jews learned during the Exodus from Egypt, and the lesson all of us have experienced ever since. Jews have been slaves for 210 years, and all of a sudden, overnight, they're released from Egypt, and they are traveling on their way to freedom and joy. And then comes the Red Sea. And then comes the miracle of the Red Sea, and they are flying high. And you know what happens after the Red Sea? They complain about the water. They complain about the food. It's never ending, up and down, up and down. I thought about that with this box of matzah. This box of matzah is a year old. I had bought it last year before Pesach, but I didn't use it when I saw where it was made. It was made in the Dnipropetrovsk in the Ukraine. And I said, I gotta save this box for a sermon next year. Imagine, incredible. They're baking matzah in the Ukraine. Do you remember in the 80s and 90s, we were smuggling in matzah to the Soviet Union and the Ukraine because in that godless country, they weren't allowed any religious symbols. That was then, and now they're baking matzah in the Ukraine and selling it in the United States. Is that unbelievable? That's what I said to myself last year. I saved the box of matzah to use it this year. But this year it contains a different message because they're not baking matzah in the Ukraine now. And that's how quickly that changed. What's going on in the Ukraine reminds us of the incredible journey of history, of Jewish history, the world history. The Ukraine, so much Jewish blood was shed in the Ukraine. Khmelnytsky in 1648 led the Cossacks in what ended up in being the murder of 100,000 Jews. Khmelnytsky has a statue of him in the center of Ukraine. But you know what Ukraine also has? A Jewish president. Who would have ever thought? Yes, there is a cycle to history. And you know what else? There are cycles to our lives. There are plenty of ups and downs. In January, Elon Musk, in one day, his stock tumbled 11%. He lost $24 billion in one day. Okay, it's true that even after the loss, Musk's personal wealth remained $218 billion, but still. And there are lots of people like that. One day you're up, and the next day there can be financial problems or trouble in the family or illness. Each of us has our own little pekla of tsaros. As a Talmudic rabbi pointed out so wisely, Ein Adam ba'olam below Yisurim. There is no man in this world without his share of private suffering. It's just then that you need to confront your difficulties head on and with faith. You can be depressed and overwhelmed and suffer illness and financial reverses, but don't give up on life. Don't become bitter and disheartened, because the cycle turns and this too shall pass. It's true. After the giving, after the crossing of the Red Sea, the Jews complained. I wanted to go back to Egypt, but they didn't. They stayed in the desert. And then one day, God revealed himself at Sinai. It was worth sticking around. It's the cycle of life. Shabbat Shalom. Moedim l'simcha and Chag Sameach.